Hello everybody, welcome back. I am KRX, so we're going to be continuing on the beginner tutorial for Europa Universalis playing as Castile here. And just keep in mind that if you're jumping in on the second episode here, that we do have the playlist linked down below so that you can start from the beginning, where we've looked at our diplomatic ecosystem, right? Now we're going to be looking at the internals of our country here. And for the most part, I'm just going to we haven't talked about any of these metrics up here. We haven't talked about these values. We're going to let these things present themselves to us, and we'll talk about them as we build the context. We don't have any context to talk about it. We don't know what any of this stuff means. We don't know what it affects. One of the tricky things about this game, why it's so difficult to teach, is everything is so interconnected. We really have to find a path through where we can build on what we know, and we don't really know much. I mean, this is a unique game system, but we do know, kind of, what it might be like to run a country, what it might be like to run a state, or a kingdom or something like that, just because of media and television stuff. And a lot of that thematic sort of understanding, or reading books or whatever, and a lot of this stuff kind of can tie back into kind of understanding how these different things are interconnected, how the economy is connected to stability, and how war affects trade, and so on and so forth, right? We can kind of understand some of these things. We talked a little bit in the first episode about how if we open this crest, we can get all these different tabs. So I think, and we do have this thing here, this banner that's telling us we need more advisors. But we don't know, and these advisors give us little special abilities. They give us, it looks like, a little plus more to the administrative skill. We haven't talked about administrative skill. We don't even know what this is really for or anything, right? We don't really know why we would want advisors or anything like that. And we also certainly don't know if we can afford them. But they have little abilities, different amounts of skill is being added. They cost different amounts per month, and so on and so forth. So before we even look at the advisor thing, really we just kind of want to be able to look at our own economy here. And for the most part, we're making a profit. We're making 5.77 ducats per month. We have 68 ducats in the treasury right now. That's pretty good. A lot of countries won't actually be making money at the start of the game. I think even Portugal is kind of like right on that line. And you're really not going to be able to, we could see where the money's coming from here in the income phase, but we're not going to be able to actively like affect this too much. Taxation, our provinces provide a certain amount of taxation. We could try to find different modifiers for raising this and lowering this, right? We can see there's a negative 5% modifier right now. And then we have production. We have a little bit of a positive production coming from technology or whatever, right? So there's different things here that can modify the value, but the core value is really going to be based on sort of like the size of our country and things like that. There's going to be small things we can do to kind of increase our income, but for the most part, when you're managing your economy, and you're doing this all the time, because it's not really one of those games where you make a profit and you're just always making a profit, like a City Skylines or another management game or something like that. This is constantly a battle. As we continue to expand, there's more expenses, there's more things we're having to pay for. As we expand, we get a bigger army. A bigger army costs more money. Our expenses are always going to be rising with our income for the most part, and we're going to constantly have to be worrying about how that's balancing itself. We're actually getting some money just from gold. It says there's gold here in this province. I just know that I know this province, but I also read that it said La Mancha, and there's actually gold here. And gold is a special trade good. We haven't talked about trade goods at all. Gold is really special in the fact you just get paid directly. I mean, you just get bank directly. So gold is really good, whereas the other trade goods kind of go into the trade system, and some of it is production, some of it you get from trade value, and it kind of like is this more roundabout way of making money. But gold, you just get gold directly, but it does affect your inflation. We haven't talked about any of this stuff, but there is a consequence to the fact that we actually are building on gold. And historically, gold and inflation issues actually crippled the Spanish Empire and the economy. So that is actually kind of fitting that we actually start with a gold mine a little bit, but that's still hundreds of years in the future, and we don't have to worry about that at all, right? But looking at our expenses, though, we can see that if we were to hire advisors, they would cost us some money. And presumably, if we were running out of money, we could fire advisors to alleviate some of our expenses. But right now, we don't have any advisors. We have state maintenance. That one we can't really affect much. We have fort maintenance. We're paying 2 ducats a month on forts. Okay, there's a little symbol here. It shows that this is a fort, right? There's a little castle symbol, a little rook symbol. And that just means that we have a castle in this province, and that has a 1 ducat maintenance. So we have 2 different forts. If we hover over that in the economy screen, it should tell us exactly where our forts are. Yeah, Toledo, and which is our capital, and then also up here where we already found. So the little icon there. We can't see the fort icon on Toledo because the army was blocking it. So this is actually our capital. This is our capital. Well, the thing is, we're at peace right now. These forts, there is actually a way to what we call mothball these forts to reduce their maintenance cut it in half, cut their maintenance cost in half. Now, we don't necessarily want our forts not maintained if we're at war or we're planning to go to war. Right now we're at peace, so we're just trying to maximize our internal economy and our internal stability. We're going to spend our money on sort of bettering the lives of our people rather than building up, just sort of propping up the fortification. So we can actually go to these areas. We can check this little button here to mothball the fort. And if you can see, we've lost the garrison. This no longer counts as a fortified province anymore. So it's not protecting this region anymore. That would be a problem if we thought there was a threat to our country right now. But we're totally fine right now. And we can see we've cut our maintenance cost in half. We're now only paying half a ducat for each of those because we clicked on the provinces and we hit this button down here to mothball the forts. There is another way to actually mothball in the military tab. You can actually go here and say mothball all forts, and then it can activate all forts. So if we're planning to go to war, we will want to activate our forts. We will want to do that. But for now, we're just going to do that to save a little bit of money. That's totally fine. You don't have to do that. You could do that. We're already making good money. But that's one way that we can manage our economy. Some countries that have too many forts or unnecessary forts and stuff, you might want to actually maintain that. Actually, here's the thing that I'm wondering. This is actually, this is a hills province. Hills are pretty good defensive provinces, so it is good to have a fort there. Toledo is a grassland province, but it is our capital. Usually I would say forts in the grasslands not particularly great because we don't necessarily want to be doing a lot of battling on the grasslands if from a defensive position, because we don't get any defensive bonuses. But hills, we actually get defensive bonuses, so it's good to have fortifications on hills and mountains and things like that, which makes thematic sense, right? Where would you want to build a fort? But since this is our capital, it makes sense to have that fort there just to protect our capital a little bit more. That is good. That is good. We have army maintenance here. We can actually slide this around. Now, of course, if we're not paying for our troops, their morale goes down. Their ability to fight is basically they cannot fight. If you're not paying for your troops, they cannot fight nearly as efficiently as if you pay for their maintenance, right? But when we're at peace, we could actually just lower this, or there's an alternative thing we can do since we're making good money, is we could actually pay full maintenance, but have them training, have them drilling. And I think that's what we're going to do with Castile, is we're going to actually drill our troops because we're making good money here. We have a fleet maintenance, and same thing, we can sort of reduce fleet maintenance. I almost never do that for your fleets because there's an interesting thing you can do if we're talking about economy, right? Different kinds of ships can do different things. In fact, the light ships here, these light ships are specialized in actually protecting trade. So we can actually click on these light ships, and they're already in their sort of different, they're in a different flotilla navy right here. We have the Armada up here, which is that has the heavy ships and the transports. And these we actually could mothball. If we're not planning on using these soon, we could actually mothball these. But I think I'm just going to leave these good to go because, again, we're affording them right now, so it's not an issue. It takes a long time to unmothball the ships. So let's keep them ready to go, because if we attack Morocco, we might actually want our ships for that war. So that makes sense. It takes a long time to get these heavies back into tip-top shape. So we don't really want to mothball our navies, but if we wanted to save money, that we could totally do that, and the button for that is right here, mothball. This basically means that these, like the forts, like mothballing a fort, we can mothball our ships. The light ships, though, ironically, these can pay for themselves by protecting trade. So light ships are also useful in combat. They're totally fine to use in combat. They're not as good as heavy ships. Heavy ships are very durable. They have a lot of guns, mans of war and stuff like that. Like if I don't know much about ships, but I do know that the heavy ships are like big beasts of a ship in terms of military might or military punch. But we can go to these missions here. We can select a mission. We can hit protect trade, and it'll actually, we haven't talked about trade, but it'll show the trade map mode. It automatically flips us the trade map mode. We are collecting money in Seville. We have 47% in Seville. And if we protect trade in Seville, we'll actually be able to take more control over the money that is in Seville. So what we could either do, it looks like we already have a merchant here. We haven't talked about our merchants. We talked about our diplomats. We haven't talked about our merchants. But we're actually pushing trade down here from Safi into Seville. So we could either protect in Safi and try to boost our influence in this 15% up higher so that we move more money down here and then ultimately collect 47% of it in Seville. Or we could try to use these ships to actually protect in Seville and actually get a boost in Seville. It's actually warning us that we might actually benefit more by we'll have more influence by working on increasing this number in Safi and then pushing more money down the coast than we will actually just sort of running our ships in Seville. So we actually could totally just have our light ships protecting Safi. It says we're actually going to make a little bit of a profit. It says based on the maintenance of this fleet, we'll actually make a small profit. It's telling us we'll make a little bit of money. Now, I will say that profit number right there is not completely accurate. That is not accurate, but it will give us a sense of whether or not these ships are doing something that's logical or not, right? So those ships are doing something logical. If we look here, we can see our merchants. Speaking of merchants, we could go back to that trade map mode since we're talking about trade and we're talking about protecting trade with our ships. We could look here and we could see, and trade is one of the ways that we're making money, right? We're making money. There's a trade tab here. We don't need to look at any of this. All of this is a useless information. But we could look at our economy, just see that we're making a certain amount of money from trade. You know, Seville is an important trade node. We're a major country in the Seville node. We control Seville, the province of Seville specifically. So it makes sense that we're a country that is likely to benefit greatly from trading as we expand, as we go to the new world. That what we produce in the world, what we extract from the new world, what we bring back from the new world, that's going to increase our trade value and the amount of money we can make and bolster our economy, right? So trade is really important to us as Castile, as Spain, or if you're playing Portugal, same kind of dealio going on there. So Seville is important, and we control most of Seville, and trade is important. So we're making good money from trade. What our traders are trying to do is they're trying to pull more money into Seville because we collect in Seville because this is the source of our trade capital. Our trade capital is based on where our capital is, and our capital is in the Seville node. So if we click on Toledo here, we could see that your main trade city. This is also our capital and our main trade city. And this is where you collect your trade. So we collect our trade basically not literally in Toledo, but just in this node, right? So if we click on here, Seville, we can see we earned 4.83 ducats here. Great. We've earned some ducats from Seville. Now, what we're doing is by pushing these merchants, pulling money, extracting money from Safi and pulling it to Seville instead of it getting collected in Safi, because Morocco's trying to collect it in Safi. Morocco wants to collect it here. A lot of these other little countries down here want to collect it down here. But so a lot of this money is actually staying behind. 2.5 ducats are staying behind for these people to collect from. What we want to do is we want to extract more of that and push it up into Seville. So we just want to make sure our merchants are doing things that are logical. There's some money in Tunis here, and we're using a merchant to pull that through. And we're using a merchant to pull some money from Safi. There you go. And as we get more merchants, we can try to expand our reach. We could send merchants to the New World. That's going to be something we're going to want to do and pull back from the New World. We can also, if we actually sort of take over Valencia, we'll be able to potentially move our collection point from Seville to Valencia, and we could funnel all of the Seville money into Valencia and actually sort of make that more of a funneling point for future trade acquisition in the future. But for now, that's looking good. So we have we've just looked at our Navy, right? I just talked about Navy maintenance. We just looked at our Navy. We have some light ships. We can have them protect and trade, make a little bit more money. Once the next month, as we move into December, we unpause the game, move into December, we will see that updated. We will see this number updated to account for the fact that we have trade ships now working on protecting trade. One thing we can do, we can actually assign a mission to our heavy ships. They cannot protect trade. It is grayed out, but they can hunt pirates. So we could actually try to have these heavy ships protect against pirates. And maybe we could just actually send like one to go do that. The reason why I'm going to send one, it's a little bit of a nuanced thing, but just like we have manpower for the military, this costs us, there's an attrition to actually having our ships, going about and doing their thing. We actually lose sailors by working our navy, by operating our navy. We have to replenish these ships with new sailors as people literally just die on the ship. Accidents and different sort of disease and all kinds of things that can happen, right? It's a tough life on the open ocean, I bet. So we could have one ship, though. We can actually have these hunting pirates in Seville. And what this is going to do, this is a little bit of a nuanced thing, but it is going to try to protect these areas down here from getting raided by the Berber nation. So this is something that's included with the DLCs, and I'm just mentioning it here because there's really no way to know about this unless it's just explicitly mentioned. But these nations down here can raid our coasts, and they can pillage our coasts even while at peace. So I'm going to send one ship to protect against pirates here, and that should deter some of these nations from trying to raid our coast. We'll see if that works or not. I'm not sure if that's going to work or not. We'll see if that works. The other ships, we're just going to have them be lazy. That might work, that might not work. We need to see how much that's going to cost us in terms of monthly sailors, though. Right now, we're not spending any sailors because our ships are just docked. Next month, we'll have those ships protecting trade. We'll have some ships fighting pirates, and that's going to affect how many sailors, how much attrition we're getting in with our navy per month. So we'll have to see if that ends up being significant or not in terms of our sailor cost. Because right now we have 365 sailors. We haven't talked about sailors that much. Not an important stat most of the time. We'll be okay. So we do know that we have a good amount of money here. We're paying for our army. This is while we're paying for our army. We have 6.77 ducats. Our ducats are going to go up a little bit because we're improving our trade situation slightly with those light ships. We are not paying for our forts, but it will cost us an extra ducat to pay for our forts. So we have about 5.77 ducats sort of ready to go. So if we go back to these advisors, we click on some of these people, we can see that we could totally afford these guys, right? These are only 1 ducat per month. Great. We could get this guy. He improves national tax modifier 10%. He's going to almost pay for himself. How much are we making from taxes? We're making 8.8 ducats a month from taxation. That's even with a negative modifier. This guy's going to increase our taxation by 10%. He's going to give us a positive 10% modifier. Let's hire this guy. He's almost going to pay for himself. Look at that. We're paying 1 ducat a month for the advisor, but we're only the net change because our taxation just went up by 0.84 ducats per month. That's pretty good. So that's good. He's almost paying for himself, and we're getting more administrative skill. We haven't talked about this, but administrative skill is incredibly important. We haven't talked about any of these PowerPoints, but basically our leader here is a 112, which on a metric of 0 to 6 is not good. So you can have up to 6 administrative skill, and you can see that our heir is a 000. Enrique is infamously terrible. We're going to want to get rid of Enrique ASAP. This will not fly. And the thing is, if we have the expansions, we actually can. With the Rights of Man expansion, you can disinherit Enrique. And to be honest, this is a little gutsy because we don't want to leave our country exposed in terms of not having an heir, but we do not want Enrique to take over the crown. He has no diplomatic skill. He has no military skill. He has no admin skill. This is terrible because these skills, we haven't talked about this, these skills, now that we've talked a lot about our economy, we've gone through this, we've managed a lot of this stuff. We figured out that we could save some money here and we could spend a little bit more money there and we could boost our trade power over here and stuff like that. But our technologies, what we're working towards is our technologies, and these different administrative skills, diplomatic skill and military skill, tie into the 3 different technology groups, which is administrative technology, diplomatic technology, and military technology. And this says that it actually costs us 598 points, 98 power, military power, in order to get this next military technology. Having military technology is really important because if we can have more military technology than another country that we're fighting, we'll actually have, our troops will fight harder, they'll fight longer, they'll be more effective in combat. We'll have better troops. So it's incredibly important to at least have military technology parity with our enemies. And ideally, if we could actually be superior to our enemies' military technology, that'd be a huge advantage. That makes sense, right? If you've played Civilization, that makes sense. More military technology gives us advantages. Just understanding how military technology works in the real world, right? Having better technology is going to give us an advantage. Same thing here. And administrative is more like internal stability and economy from taxation and stuff. We could see that when we get to the next administrative technology, we'll unlock churches. Churches increase local tax modifiers. So we could actually invest money into our country to boost our monthly taxation rate. What this means is that we can actually spend a little bit of money now to get a return on investment later, right? And ultimately boost, shore up, and strengthen our economy for the future. We can invest in our own country, develop our own country. Here we can get a local trade power increase with marketplaces by getting diplomatic technologies. But over time, we'll get new kinds of buildings. We'll unlock new kinds of buildings, new kinds of military techniques, and new kinds of sort of just stronger troops and new kinds of units and stuff like that. So getting technology is incredibly important. And we can see a 112 is not a good leader. So we're getting a very small amount of technology as it is. And these are based on, there's a base of 3. We can see some modifiers here, right? With a base of 3, we get 1 because of one the second is diplomatic skill. And we're losing 1 because we actually have a national focus right now in military, which I don't disagree with. This is what the game defaults to. We can make a national focus for admin or for Diplo, but honestly, I like the fact that we're focused on military because, again, we're really going to try to get a military advantage over Morocco over Tlemcen, so on and so forth. If we click on other countries, just out of curiosity, like Aragon, we look at their leader, they have a 246. Their military skill of their leader, Alfonso over here, is a 6. That's kind of crazy compared to a 2, right? So they're getting a significantly larger amount of military points per month than us. We can see our leader also has some other things, like he's a naive enthusiast and he's a zealot, which is actually a good thing. We get more missionary strength from that, and we have well advised and so on and so forth. So we actually really do just want to get rid of Enrique here, though. This is not good. This is going to cost us a lot of prestige. We haven't talked about that, but we're just going to disinherit Enrique. This guy's terrible. We're just going to hope for the best. That puts us well into negative prestige. It is now warning us that we get a personal union if we die. That's okay. I trust that we will be able to get a new heir by getting royal marriages. We do want to get a royal marriage with Aragon. We want to get a royal marriage with Portugal. We want to get a royal marriage with our allies to be able to shore that up. Maybe we want to use Navarre as a source of royal marriage and heirs and stuff like that. So we'll be able to work on this. But Enrique's got to go. He's got to go. Oh, we have a trade advisor here. We just talked about how important trade is now. Now, we're not quite making as much from trade as we are from taxation, but we probably want to get the trade advisor guy. We can afford that. We're spending a decent amount of our actual total income here. Okay, slotting these guys in, but these guys are mostly paying for themselves in terms of the monthly income change. It is worth grabbing these guys because they're increasing our trade efficiency, they're increasing our taxation efficiency, and so on and so forth. Now, we are also giving them a signing bonus. Keep in mind, we're spending about 15.5 ducats or so, or around 15 ducats to get these guys signed on, to sort of hire these guys in the first place. They do have an age, and they can die. So, I mean, if they're really old, then, which 40 is not super old, but if they were like 60 years old and we hired them, we could be paying them a big sign-on bonus, and they might not actually last that long. So here it's saying that we can get more national manpower. It's like, okay, we have 8,000 right now. We have a maximum of 27,000. We're regaining some manpower per day. We've talked about manpower, but this is what replenishes our armies when they take damage. This is how we recruit new regiments into our army and stuff like that. So this would give us more manpower. But I think, honestly, we're focused on military right now. We do want to get a military advisor. I don't want to dismiss that. We do want a military advisor. But I think the money that we have right now, we might need to use this to actually build more units. Let's actually go look at our missions. Okay, we've talked about our economy. We've sort of looked at our advisor slots. We're not worried about that. I'm going to right-click that. We're going to right-click the disputed successions. This is all totally fine. We're totally fine right now. I'm going to go to our missions. This can give us some guidance on what we might want to do. So we have plus ultra. Plus ultra. What is this saying? Number of explorers at least 1. So we need to get an explorer. And this is telling us basically, this is a colonial telling us to core province in any of the North America, South America, New World. Okay, so this is telling us to go to the New World, right? Telling us to go to the New World, make it to the New World. Well, we already have the Canaries. We know that historically, Portugal, Castile, France, and England are going to be colonizing nations. We are going to pursue that. We are going to pursue that. That's totally fine. So we have a few missions here. This is actually saying that manpower is at least level 60%. 60% manpower. That might make it good. Well, this is actually going to increase our national manpower modifier. This is going to increase how much manpower we have rather than our recovery rate. So we want to get 60% of our manpower. Right now we're at 8,000 out of, maybe 9,000 out of 27,000. So we're about 1/3. We're about 33% of our manpower right now. It takes 10 years to get to 100% manpower from 0% manpower. So it's 10 years to replenish your manpower entirely. So to get 33%, it's going to be about 3 years, right? It's going to take us about 3 years to get to get this done. But what this does do is it gives us permanent claims. It gives us permanent claims on Granada. So you know how we're building a spy network in Morocco to potentially attack them and get claims on that? We'll actually get permanent claims on Granada. But the tricky thing is, to be able to boost our manpower up to 60%, we kind of have to sit around. So that's actually going to make a very casual start. We might not be going to war with Morocco if we want our manpower to go up. Because war, of course, as we fight battles and as we take attrition, we lose men in war. And that would actually make it harder to get up to 60% manpower level. It says the total army and navy size would these be 100% force limit. The thing is, we do want to do this, right? We want to get permanent claims on Granada, before the truce is over. We have a 4-year truce with these guys. And we could almost, just because of what we know about manpower, what I said about manpower, we know that it's going to take about 3 to 4 years to get the manpower up to get this done. But it does give us some benefits like the free claim. So we're going to get free justification, free cause for war. We're preparing for the Reconquista, right? We're going to reconquer this, push the Sunnis back out of Iberia, and push them, basically take over that land and make it Catholic, I guess. So then it's going to actually have us subjugate Navarre. And we can actually work on this. We can't do the mission because this chains into this one. But we could actually get this done now. We have a mission to subjugate Navarre. Which is kind of interesting. And that will give us a free castle in Navarre, which is kind of cool. So to actually build a castle here, Navarre is really interesting because Navarre is a mountain province. So getting a castle there, a free castle there would be kind of cool. So if we subjugate them, we'll get a free castle there, and then we can integrate them over time, right? And then the mission after, of course, once we have the prepare for Reconquista, the mission is to actually go and take the land, right? Once we take the land, we get the fate of the Kingdom of Granada happen. So we'll get some sort of fancy event. We'll be able to convert them, and then presumably this will send us on the way to continue the Reconquista, and we'll actually get a means. Once we can convert this land, we'll actually get a means of attacking into Morocco. Now, we might want to kind of sidestep this and attack Tlemcen, or we might want to attack Morocco ourselves. We don't have to wait for these missions, but these are just an idea of what we can do. This is actually telling us the claims in Aragon, and this will actually give us a restore the Union Casus Belli on Portugal. So this actually means that we could actually we could go to war with Portugal to force a personal union on them once we sort of take control of Aragon. But here's the thing. Historically, there is a potential that we'll be able to diplomatically integrate Aragon. So we don't actually have to worry about this side so much. But you can see there's a lot of missions here. And this is because we're playing with the DLC, but there's a lot of different things that we could be working on. It says this one's actually highlighted as a different branch here. It wants us to actually own a province in Western Africa. So that is, again, related to colonialization. Colonialization will come later as we get new technologies. As we get more administrative technology, we'll be able to unlock an idea, a philosophy, and these philosophies can be to colonize, right? Colonial philosophies like expansion and exploration. So exploration is something that we're going to want to go historically and thematically, and also for our missions. This lets us get those explorers, right? There's that mission to get an explorer. And then there's also the colonial ventures that gives us colonists. So we don't start with any colonists. You don't start with a colonist by default. You have to work towards colonists. So we know what our missions are. We just need to get manpower. That's basically sitting around. I wanted to talk about how we could drill our troops. We can actually assign a leader. We actually start with a general, it seems. So if we go to our military tab, which we haven't looked at yet, there's a lot of numbers here that we don't need. We talked about how we could mothball our forts. We could actually raise generals. We could recruit generals from the army. And this pulls from our army tradition. We have a very low army tradition right now. So the generals that we grab out of 100, right? This is 9 out of 100. And it's always trying to go down to 0. It's always trying to fight its way down to 0. So in this case, it's 9 at the moment, but it's actually going down. We can't, it's hard to do anything about that. When you build this up by winning and fighting battles and winning wars and stuff like that. Over here, though, we can recruit generals, but we already have a general, sort of a historical general that's ready to go. We can assign them to a standing army by hitting the leader here. It says there's no leader assigned. We can assign this leader, and then we can actually hit enable army drilling. And we can drill these guys, and this will actually build our army professionalism. This will build the actual training of the individual units to make them stronger units. But more importantly, getting that army professionalism will make all of our units universally. Now there's the trained ones, but all of our units basically fiercer fighters. They take less damage, they deal more damage. It's just all kinds of good stuff. Let's move these troops over here because they can just group up. We can have them all grouping up in Toledo, and we can have them essentially working together here and drilling together as one unit in Toledo. So we're going to move these guys over here, but we haven't unpaused the game yet. Getting pretty close to doing that. We've talked about technology a little bit. We've talked about trade a little bit. Talked about economy a little bit. We've talked about diplomacy. That was in episode 1, right? There's a tab for religion. There's a tab for stability, but our country is very stable. There's no possible rebellions down here. This is blank. If we had possible rebellions, this would show up. We're not going through and teaching these tabs. We'll teach these tabs when they become relevant. This stuff isn't relevant. Our religious unity right now is 100%. There's no discontent within our country right now, essentially. Everybody's just a happy Catholic, living in a happy Catholic country. So there's no issue there, really. What is this? Oh, we have 100% discipline. But essentially, one thing we could look at is it did say part of this mission, though, the other side of this mission, not only is it to build up our manpower, but the other side of this mission is to have an army size of at least 100% of our force level. Well, how are we doing on that? Our force limit is actually 33,000 units. 33,000 units. Or sorry, 33 units of 33,000 men, because every regiment is 1,000 men, right? So we actually could build up. We actually have room to build up an army. Although I'm almost kind of tempted to do a mercenary army. Because I'm noticing that the mercenaries do not require manpower. Right now, our manpower, we're talking about we need manpower, but we also, like, this is kind of an interesting situation because we want manpower. Kind of an annoying mission. I'm not going to lie, this mission is kind of annoying. Because it wants us to build up to our force limit, which is going to cost manpower, because every one of those times, we don't just get to build this unit for free. This takes 1,000 men out of the manpower pool. So if we're to build up literally 9,000 more troops, it would cost us 9,000 manpower. Then we'd have to replenish that. It would take years. It would take years to do that, which is kind of crazy. So it wants us to have 60% manpower, and it wants us to have 100% force limit. Yeah, I don't know. We might actually just ignore this mission and do our own thing and get our own claims and just work on it ourselves, because it's going to be a little bit before we actually get to this point. I don't know if we want to twiddle our thumbs for that long. Although there is going to be plenty of things that we can do as we let the game run. There's going to be tons of opportunities to take advantage of and stuff like that. That's more than just going to war with Granada or going to war with someone else. But if we go to this production tab, I do apologize, guys, because I kind of glossed over that a little bit. But if we go to this production tab here, that's how we can build more troops. And I can just see down here, it tells us about our army force limit. In the military tab, it shows us that as well. So here, the military tab, our army force limit is 24 out of 33. Go to the production tab, it reminds us right here. And then basically we're in the land units. We could also build more ships. We could see that we have room for 3 more ships under our naval force limit of 23. We have 20 ships. We could build 3 more. Totally would be worth it. Totally would be worth it. We could just build some more troops right now, though. Although I don't know if we need to do this right now. I don't know if we actually need to do that right now. We have a special Marines infantry, huh? These actually require sailors. That's kind of cool. We could recruit 5% of our force limit as Marines. So this is actually a special unit that we have as an Iberian, I believe, with the Golden Century. We can actually recruit a special unit using sailors to actually recruit troops. Well, we don't really have that many sailors right now. Those are going up pretty slowly. So I don't know if that's going to benefit us too much. Yeah, we just don't have the sailors do that. But it's cool that we can actually recruit troops from the sailor pool, though. That's kind of neat. That's kind of neat. Instead of getting the troops right now, because we already have a large army, no one's going to attack us. It's going to be a few years before we attack anyone else. Let's go and get this. Let's go and get this leader here, which is just sort of a cheap leader that we can get some more military skill and work towards that military technology more quickly. So that's totally fine. The other thing that we have not talked about, though, and that's related to Low Crownland, this is the estate tab. This is the new infamous estate tab that was just added in 1.3. We will talk about this, though, in the next episode, and then we'll unpause the game. We'll start moving and grooving. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. Really appreciate that. Of course, this is a beginner. There's a lot of complexity with the DLCs, guys. Sadly, playing with the DLCs makes this quite a bit more complicated. If you don't have the DLCs, the Portugal run that we've done is great. The Muscovy run that we've done is really, really good, I think, as well. Goes a little bit quicker than this one. This one, we're really trying to break things down. There's so many interlocking mechanisms and systems with this game. It's a slow-going process. I think we're going to play this a little bit more patiently. I think we're going to play this very slow and patiently, and we're going to end up sort of zipping along in the next episode, hopefully unpausing and getting things moving, getting the game progressing, and see how the world evolves from that state. So we need to, next episode, we talk about the estates, and then we're going to tie into playing the game and seeing how the world evolves with the game, with the time running. Because I think we'll be in a position to wait for a few years until truces end and until manpower builds up and stuff like that. So thank you so much, everybody, for watching. I will see you guys in the next one.